Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Pick Six podcast. It's a special edition. It's me, Ryan Wilson, no Will Brinson, which, as always, is a good thing. But I am thrilled today to be joined by Carlos Alazraqui. And you may remember him from Reno 911 back in the day. And Carlos, thank you so much for joining us. Before we get into this, I just want to say I am a huge Reno fan. Eric, our producer, knows that. I'm substantially older than Eric, so I'm trying to get him into it. And he has dabbled in it, and he's coming around. But it is a fantastic show, and we're having you on not because it's a Reno 911 podcast, although it could be, but because this is a sports podcast, and Paramount Plus is coming out with the old Reno 911, The Hunt for QAnon movie, which is a fantastic title. It's coming out December 23rd on Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus is our parent company. It's CBS Sports here. So this was a great opportunity for me to harass you for a few minutes about not only that, but also you're a sports guy, right?
Yeah, harass me. I'm a sports guy. I grew up a jock. I wasn't a theater guy at all. And let's see, I played high school football. I played soccer. I swim team. We played fast pitch, baseball, everything. Just anything with a ball in the 70s. Our kids were outside playing sports. And so grew up in the Bay Area. Niners, San Francisco Giants. My brother's was A's and Los Angeles Rams. I moved to LA. I eschewed the Warriors. Bad move. Became a Clippers fan, and now I like Los Angeles Football Club in MLS. So yeah, I'm sports. ESPN is my comic books. Fox Sports West, your show, everything. It's all comic books to me. That's my comic books.
That's so funny because you grew up in the 70s. I grew up in the 80s, and it was the same thing because there was no video games. There were like 2 channels, so you spent a lot of your time outside playing sports. My 10-year-old asked me the other day, what did you used to do all the time? I said, I was outside. I wasn't staring at screens and, playing video games.
Always outside.
Yeah. It was a simpler time, Carlos. Yeah. So, before we get into the sports, I got to fan out and ask you about Reno 911. Premiered in 2003 on Comedy Central. Yeah. And, Debo and I were talking about this. And I laugh every time I see it. We watched the SARS outbreak episode this morning. Which, depending on who you ask, and by that I mean the internet and Reddit in particular, it might be one of the best episodes that people tend to be drawn to. In addition to the no mustache episode, which obviously featured you and Lieutenant Dangle and Travis, the mustache aficionados. Do you think that? Would you be able to make that show today? Do you feel like, given how, a lot of things have changed in the last 17 or so years, even though the comedy is spot on, and I don't think if you understand what the show's about, you shouldn't take it personally, but it might be sort of a different time.
Yeah, we've answered that at in a couple of different venues that it's possible to make that show, and it's possible for us to poke fun at it as the Reno group, because we always end up becoming the butt of the jokes in one of our Quibi series, which I think you can now see on Roku as well as the new ones, which will come out eventually. But we have to look for a straight white man to shoot to tip the scales of balance. And, I think only we could handle that because we're the idiots. The joke is always going to be on us. So we're able to tackle those issues. And Ben, Tom, and Kerry certainly took that into mind. It's like, we can't skate around it. So yes, let's go with that issue of where we are going to look for a straight white man to shoot on purpose so we can balance the scales. Absolutely. There's nothing that really we don't go after, because we're just poking fun at ourselves. So as long as we end up being the butt of the jokes and that we're the ones that don't get it, I think that allows us to mine those territories.
No, that's a good point. And look, Lieutenant Dangle, was gay, and no one in the Reno Police Department cared. Like, no one cared. Like, that wasn't a topic of I don't remember it being a topic of a point of contention anyway. And in that sense, it felt sort of open-minded. Like, they accepted him for who he was.
There was one thing. Well, yeah, exactly. Except Dangle, there was one episode where Rainisha thought she wanted to wear a burqa and become Muslim, and and basically Wendy McLennan Covey just goes, whatever. You're like, we don't care.
Right.
You're a Reno sheriff. Garcia, you could argue, is a self-loathing, probably Central American white Mexican guy that doesn't even know he's Mexican.
Yeah, he has some
been white all his life because he's been in Reno.
That's right. Yeah. And he has some, sometimes he says some things that might be considered racist.
Yeah, and Jones and I, we always got good cop, black cop.
Good cop, black cop, for example.
Yeah, I think we could still do that because we're the idiots. Look at those idiots.
And the other thing is, it was a diverse cast. You had diverse special guests, and it's sort of amazing when you go through how many guest appearances you had, the cameos that were such great actors and actresses. And I was sort of thinking about, George Lopez played the mayor who had the drug problem.
Hernandez, yeah.
Seth Green ran the Burger Cousins, where you and
that was fun.
And Jones had to work at. By the way, I was watching an interview about Cedric Yarborough's character Jones. Do you know Jones's first name? This was one of the questions.
Well, we tried to come up with it in one of the episodes where I think it was like Sade, but then we had a scene where we got married and we've made up a weird first name for him as like Cephas Centarius. I have to go back and watch it, but I don't know if they put it in or if I got it, they put it in, but we decided that let's really give you a name. And he just came up with some weird name off the bat, but I think it was Sade.
That is absolutely fantastic. So tell me a little bit about the Hunt for QAnon, because you watched the preview, Patton Oswalt's in it, and Patton Oswalt obviously played Boozehammer of Galen, which was a sort of a memorable role in the original series. So what happens? You guys, it looks like, according to the preview, you guys are in Miami. I think you end up on a cruise ship. And
we're going to the Caribbean. We're getting a cruise ship to go on a Q cruise to find out who Q is, to infiltrate it and find out who Q is. And along the way, we have surprise mystery guests. Hijinks ensues. It's there's some seasickness going on, and just weird, stupid, idiotic things that we try to do in our search for Q. And in a sense, it's not really kind of political at all. It's just it's totally Scooby-Doo. Let's get in the mystery van and go find Q. Yeah. We just go. And of course we're idiots. We mess everything up. And the cruise is not going to go the way we expected, because Reno, we always expect we're going to have something luxurious happen to us. And it's far from that. There's gunplay, there's chases, there's special guests, people getting sick, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, when the preview came out, when I found out about it, I was so excited that I mentioned to our producer Debo that I cannot wait to see this. And of course, this opportunity came up, so I had to kill a couple guys to make it happen. I was third in line, so that worked out perfectly for me.
Yeah.
So 2003 to 2008, I think, is when the original first 6 seasons ran. You came back to the seventh on Quibi, as you mentioned. Is there any difficulty in taking a decades-long break or so and getting back into what it felt like, or is everyone so comfortable with each other, all the improv backgrounds and all that? Is it something that's a little easier?
I think Nisi said it best, and she was always the champion for us to stay together. Like, boy, right after 2009, when I believe it officially ended, or when the aired part ended, we did a sort of a PSA for a guy that was running for sheriff in Torrance, where we used to shoot, Sheriff Rogers, or his last name was Rogers. And we got together, and there was a shuttle bus, and we went down there, and Nisi was like, we got to get together. And then we did some live events together. We did Sketchfest in San Francisco. So we were always sort of tethered by these events that would happen, and not really. As I said in another interview, we're our own favorite dog park. We know each other. We know the dogs that live there. So you could take us apart and take us to other dog parks for years, but if you brought us back together, there's just sort of a math that we all understand. We all get it. And then Joe Latrulio and Ian Roberts, we're all joined in together. We're all fused together, and everybody just fits. We just get each other.
Yeah,
it's like the old Harlem Globetrotters.
Absolutely. I just can't impress upon people who are listening to this enough how good the show is. And if you're younger and you're 20 or something, you have to check it out. It's on Paramount Plus. You can watch it commercial free all day long and go crazy. Let me ask you this, because this is something I thought about as I watched the show. And you mentioned usually the jokes on the police department, on the sheriff department. How did Reno Police Department, the real police department, take this, and how did the citizens of Reno? Did you guys ever get any feedback about how they felt about the show, where they're portrayed sometimes as bumbling buffoons?
Well, this is what I said. We shot it in Carson, California. We were really at the Carson Sheriff Station in their briefing mailroom, and so they were really cool with us. They loved us. Sheriff Alvarez, I think it was Ruben Alvarez. He was always joking with us. Always loved to help out. And then the one time we actually did go to Reno for an event, it was to for MySpace way back in the day, right?
Yeah.
The winner of the contest gets to spend a weekend in Reno with the Reno Sheriff's Department. We all get off the same plane. We flew out of Burbank, I think, and we land in Reno, and there's about 10 Reno cops waiting at the gate as we're walking off the jetway into the airport, staring us down, giving us the stink eye, like, and we're like, oh my God, did they? And then they just went, oh, hey, Reno. So, that was a pretty good sign that they're like, we love you guys. We get it. Let us show you around the town, Silver Legacy down by the river. We'll show you some stuff,
That's
they were
fantastic.
totally cool with it.
That's fantastic. Absolutely. Before we move solely into sports, I'm going to use this as a segue. One of my favorite movies growing up, and I saw you tweet about this, and I was really excited because on this podcast, which is NFL podcast, me and the host Will Brinson go back and forth with this line a lot. But you mentioned in one of your tweets a few weeks ago, actually, that Clint Howard in Parenthood going, no business being out. That is one of the funniest things you've ever seen in a movie. And I could not agree more, because Clint Howard, look, he ain't Brad Pitt, number one. Number two, Steve Martin's son's out there dropping fly balls. He has his business being out there. The game has no bearing on anything. I mean, it's not like Clint Howard's character is betting money on it. At least I don't remember him doing so. But that no business line, it is never not funny. And it comes in, and you can use this, by the way, when you talk about your 49ers, it comes in handy every Sunday when you're watching football, being like, what is going on?
No business. And as I said on the tweet, I had the pleasure of seeing Clinton in person and telling him how funny that was. He's like, yeah, thanks. I remember that. I was just like, I really wanted to be into it. It's like, yeah, no business. He's terrible. His level of commitment on that line is wonderful. And yes, every football team rages against their own football team. And listen, Kyle Shanahan is a pretty fantastic coach, but there are weekends when we call him Shanahan, because you have this guy, Trey Lance, who in the very first game of the year, Garoppolo drives all the way down to the field, gets to the 7-yard line, and you put Trey Lance in, and he throws the first touchdown pass of the season. I'm like, why hasn't that been going on outside of his knee injury? Why has that not been going on like Taysom Hill for the Saints? You got to Taysom Hill that guy. So they're up against the final drive against the Seahawks. You're on the 6-yard line, 1st and goal, and you're down Deebo Samuel. You're down a weapon. You're not going to put a guy that can run and pass in. You're going to stick with the one look Jimmy, and that's it. And so, come on. He has no business being in there. Put Trey Lance in there.
It's funny.
So
I had the exact. You're right. I had the exact same thought in that exact same situation. It's like, you have Trey Lance for a reason. So let me back up. Let me back up a little bit. How did you feel when the 49ers drafted Trey Lance 3rd overall after giving up all that stuff to go up there and get him?
A lot of that capital, because they had the 12th pick originally, the 12th pick
around that area, and they go up to 3.
12. Yeah, and listen, first of all, I'm not remiss that they didn't draft Mac Jones, because Mac Jones fits into that system, and Mac Jones with the 49ers O-line would be dead right now. The 49ers need a mobile quarterback. Kyler Murray didn't have a great last game, but you look at Mahomes, you look at even Dak Prescott, look at Aaron Rodgers, the ability to step up in the pocket, make a move, get out, run for 5 yards, and slide. And Garoppolo will rarely do that. So I felt fine about Trey Lance. I knew it, listen, same division, right? From Wyoming, Josh Allen.
Yeah.
That's right. Mobility in the NFL, I think, is just such a key right now, because these linemen are so fast. They're 325 pounds and they could chase down quarterbacks. So I felt good about the pick. I think the 49ers, as much as I complain, rather than using him on choice downs or goal line things, Trey Lance is fine sitting on the bench learning while Jimmy plays. I still would like to see him Taysom Hill it a little bit, but I love the choice. I love the pick, because I think the future is a mobile quarterback, especially in the NFC West. With the exception of with our guy at the Rams. Why am I
Matthew Stafford?
Matthew Stafford. Yeah, with the exception, but even him can get out of the pocket. So I'm totally happy with the pick. Go for it.
That's a great attitude to have, because they gave up so much, and you wonder how much pressure that puts on Trey Lance. But I don't disagree at all with, I don't know why he hasn't been out there recently, unless he's injured. We don't know about it. But I'm not a 49ers fan. I'm a Steelers fan. But I watch all the games, because we cover all the games. And when the 49ers were 3-5 after that loss to Arizona, I was like, Shanahan, sort of echoing your words, is a great coach, but I'm not sure about this making all the decisions on the players, because it seems like, he's great at the X's and O's, but when you ask him to put a team together, and I think he has a lot of that responsibility, maybe this Trey Lance thing, maybe the assets could have been used better otherwise. But look, they just reeled off 4 of their last 5. They're playing pretty well. Huge win in Cincinnati in overtime. How do you feel about this team going forward?
I think Lynch is a good general manager. He's a Stanford guy. He's got a good head on his shoulders, right? Former quarterback that used to kill people on defense. So Lynch is pretty smart. Yeah, they're playing well, but you can't argue. What is he, 1-5 in the division against this year? He's really terrible against. He can't beat Seattle. The only team we seem to beat is the Rams in our division. But I think we're 1-5 this year against our division. We have 2 losses to the Cardinals, 2 losses to Seattle, and we played the Rams once. Is that 5 games? Yeah, that's 5. 1-4. I don't know. I don't even know how to count. But so we have to be better within our division and special teams. As a 49er fan, maybe as a Steeler fan, I always expect that we're going to fumble. Special teams is going to blow it. And I love watching teams like New England who are solid. You don't think that New England is going to fumble or do something stupid or get a roughing the passer. Or certainly our DBs. When I was in high school, I was taught to turn back and look for the ball. And you see the Jalen Ramsey's, the number 7 for the Cowboys. Why am I forgetting his name?
Teron Diggs.
Yeah, they turn back and look for the ball. I don't know how our Niner DBs are lost sometimes, but they're getting better. Ward is coming back. Debo is healthy. Kittle is a monster.
Yeah.
Garoppolo gets the job done, but you'd love to see it just beyond getting the job done. You got to say, against the Packers, he got the job done. He got the winning drive. It's just they fell asleep for 37 seconds, and you're playing. I'm going to get Stephen A. Smith, and you're playing against Aaron freaking Rodgers, the best that has ever been. And don't tell me that there's nobody better in the NFL.
Worth noting, Carlos Alazraqui, voice actor as well.
Yeah, voice actor.
1-4 in the division, it turns out. And we used to say about a guy that was pretty famous not too long ago. There's a tweet for that. Well, here's a tweet you have a tweet for everything. Hope the 49ers are trolling high schools for DBs. Horribly coached. The solid move was a lose-lose for all concerned. This is October 24th. So you practice what you preach. You say it out loud and you tweet it as well when you're fired up.
Yeah. Sala going to New York, struggling. I just wish we could have held on. He's a great coach, a great defensive coach. But I think one of the few defensive coaches that could turn it around was when you transition from Bill Walsh to George Seifert. And Seifert didn't lose a beat. Their offense was still great. Their defense was still great. I'm excited, by the way, going back to college football, for the Oregon Ducks to get Georgia's defensive coordinator. Are they deciding to play defense at Austin Stadium now, or Osden Stadium in Oregon? This is a sacrilege to get a defensive coordinator from the SEC in Oregon. What's happening with the world?
I do wonder now. The defensive coordinator to head coach job's a different sort of animal, but the Lincoln Riley going from Oklahoma, a team that's headed to the SEC to USC. Part of that, I'm sure a lot of it's money, but I think part of it, I wonder if it's easier. It's easier to win in the Pac-12 than it is in the SEC, and maybe that's fewer things he has to worry about as he continues to recruit everyone and their brother. I'm not steeped in recruiting, so I don't know how well USC does in state, but I imagine Lincoln Riley's going to change that.
He's already gotten a few commitments to come over there. Yeah.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
I do wonder, and that's sort of the opposite of what you expect. And we were sort of talking about this before we started recording, like with the Nick Sabans and the Urban Meyers, where you're taking the path of least resistance and going to an potentially easier conference, whereas jumping from the college ranks to the pros, you're saying, okay, can I tackle the hardest thing that I can do in my job? And the answer for Nick Saban was, I don't think so. And the Urban Meyer question seems to be absolutely resounding no.
I think he's a coach for college age kids and not for men that have already decided in life that, listen, as Moreland said, when he went from Wisconsin to the 49ers and played 1 year, he goes, college football was about camaraderie and team. He goes, these guys are animals. They will kill your children to get your job. He goes, right. I'm out. I don't like this. And so that's what you're dealing with in the NFL. You're not dealing with like, go Big Blue. But although Harbaugh was an interesting guy, right? Turns Stanford's program around, comes into the 49ers, takes him to the Super Bowl, and then, has his problems. But what a run. It's so fascinating. He was able to kind of like, who has it better than us? Nobody. He was able to kind of get that college rah-rah stuff going with the 49ers in the NFL. So
that's a great point. I had forgotten about that because he came in quickly, turned things around quickly. They had a ton of success. And as soon as he left, things sort of fell off a cliff. And
when they saw Kaepernick and said, "I'm sorry, Alex Smith. I think I like this other guy better."
And it turned out that was the right call because it sort of worked with what they were doing. So about this year's 49ers, they're currently sixth in the playoff race. 7 teams get in this year, 7-6. And let's see who they have left here. They have the Falcons,
Rams.
then they're at
January.
Tennessee, then they have Houston, and then they have at the Rams. So it feels like 2 wins for sure.
Yep.
How comfortable do you feel? How confident are you that they're going to make the playoffs?
Well, it depends on what the other teams do, right? Because Washington's behind them, the Vikings are behind them. Seattle, I think I'm just hoping the Rams just finally put the final nail in the wooden stake in the heart of Russell Wilson, because you can never count out the Seahawks. So I'm hoping the Rams win against Seattle. So I think we can win 3 of those games. And Tennessee could be hard because Henry could be coming back by then. Although if we get McGlinchey back on our side and we can run the ball, I like our chances. But we always seem to play the Rams well. And maybe that won't be a game for them. They'll say, listen, we can't catch Arizona. We're going to rest. That's January 9th. I'm going to that game with additional castmate Joe Rizzo, a.k.a. Joe Latrulio, who's a Rams fan. I'm taking my brother, who's a Rams fan. My nephew's 49er fans. So we're going to have 2 49er fans and 2 Rams fans going to that game. But well, how do I feel about their chances? Okay. I don't feel great. I'm not buying any tickets.
And all right, let me ask you: Are you have yes or no answer? You either your team Shanahan, or are you rather take your chances with someone else?
No, if that's the stakes, I'm Team Shanahan.
Right. Because what happens is, fans all the time get angry and say fire so and so, and then my follow up questions are, all right, what's Plan B? Because Plan B typically turns out to be worse than Plan A 8 times out of 10. It feels like.
Yeah. Who do we have? Tom Zula? Coach Tom Zula? Farting and spitting. Yeah.
Yeah, the weirdest thing, I don't know if you've ever seen this picture. The Tom Zula without a mustache is it's like the episode of No Mustache. It's weird to see this man without a mustache. Like, okay, I take you less seriously now than I did when you were just walking around with the mustache and the mullet. Yeah. All right. Before we go, and I appreciate your time so much, Carlos. Yeah. You're a huge soccer guy as well. You mentioned LACFC. I'm not an MLS guy, but I live in upstate New York, and once NYCFC came to the MLS, I said, all right, I'll follow this and see what I can do. They had like David Villa and Frank Lampard and Andre Pirlo their first few years. So I was like, okay, I'll see if I can get into this. And I followed them from afar. And I will say I didn't watch any matches this year except for the final. And the final was actually incredibly exciting. And I know you get fired up about LACFC's defense.
LAFC's Los Angeles Football Club defense has been suspect for sure.
And where were you on the Bob Bradley dismissal?
I wanted to, almost like Shanahan. I thought it was time for him to go because I thought he's a pretty good tactician, but he doesn't seem to be a motivator. I love the Savarese for Portland, and I love what the guy did with New York Football Club. Although, unfortunately, they play at Yankee Stadium, and I saw LAFC play there against them back when we had Diamande, but it's not a great place to watch football. They deserve their own stadium now. Let them share the Harrison, New Jersey stadium with the Red Bulls.
I agree.
Let them have a soccer-only stadium because they deserve that. But I wanted Bradley out. I think they need a more attacking style because defensively, Bradley never seemed to be able to defend against set pieces or have a solid back four. And then they got rid of Zimmerman. So they never really had a plan defensively. So
I'm laughing because you mentioned Walker Zimmerman. There's a tweet for this, and this is one of the few highlights I caught, the Walker Zimmerman PK, and you tweeted out, did you see his penalty kick?
Yeah.
Where he sent it into the 20th row, and but he's a great player, and he's I know him mostly from U.S. men's national team, where he has come in and done incredibly well. And I mentioned all this because Paramount Plus also has Champions League coverage.
Yes.
They have Europa League. They have Serie A. They have a lot of the South American leagues. So if that's your thing as well, do you have a European team that you follow, or are you mostly MLS?
Well, my friend's Arsenal. He's down the street. I'm mostly MLS. Sergio Aguero just retired. My parents are from Argentina. So Barca for sure in the Spanish league. I like AC Milan because Weston McKennie plays there. And of course, I got to follow Chelsea because Pulisic plays there as well. So Those 3 or 4 teams right there.
And are you a U.S. men's national team guy?
Oh yeah, I am definitely U.S. men's national team. I'm loving Serginho Dest.
Uh,
I'm loving Weston McKennie the way he's playing. I'm loving Robinson in the back four.
really.
Pulisic, Musa, who's this young kid, like 20
English.
years old,
It
playing
was,
fantastically.
yeah, he grew up in England. He's playing for Valencia now, I think. And
Yeah,
I'm with you. How incredible was that Mexico game to you? And you tweeted out they got Dos Acero correct in terms of the pronunciation, even though I probably just botched it.
exactly. 2-0. I was impressed. They really played well, especially in the second half. They really attacked and didn't back down. Of course, none of those games were at Estadio Azteca, so that makes it a little easier. But they played unafraid, which I like. They seem to be playing unafraid. And a lot of people would say that about Berhalter. We should have got a European coach, but the guy has done it. And I think the true test of a coach in any sport is like the players really like playing for this guy or girl. Gino Ariyama at Connecticut. That guy's such a great coach. Pat Summitt for Tennessee. The players. Speaking of which, hopefully Popovich retires and Becky Hammond becomes the first NBA coach. It would be neat,
Right.
but a good coach seems to be one that the players like to play for, along with a good record. And
The record helps for sure.
there's certain coaches that seem to have that. So we'll see.
It's funny you say that because you are maybe the only fan I've talked to who is supportive of Greg Berhalter, because I find he frustrates me in much the way that feels like Shanahan frustrates you. And I think in that Mexico game, he didn't overthink it. He said, these are my best players. They're all 18 to 22. I don't care. I'm going to put them out there. We are more athletic. We're faster. And just as talented as Mexico. And we saw that. And they were able to expose Mexico. And you'll probably push back on this, but I do have an anti-MLS bias on the U.S. men's national team. It's all irrational. I love Miles Robinson. I love Walker Zimmerman when they're out there. There's some other guys I won't mention that I prefer they not play. But I get it. But I think you're right. If you take a step back and say, look, Greg is getting the most out of these kids when he doesn't overthink it. And by the way, U.S. men's national team games also on Paramount Plus, so there's no reason not to subscribe.
Yes, you got to check them out.
But I'm glad that you offered the voice of reason for Greg Berhalter. In related news, as I looked this up on Wikipedia, Carlos works for U.S. men's national team. Okay, got that.
Yeah, exactly. And get to cash that. But I think they're doing well, because generally when you play Mexico, they own possession and really dictate the game. And they made Mexico chase the game a little bit in the second half, and that was good to see.
Yeah, I love this team because they're young. They don't care. Yeah. A lot of the kids play in Europe, and it's such a relief and a juxtaposition for how 2018 went, which was unarguably, as I were inarguably a low point in U.S. men's national team, the way they sort of bowed out.
Yeah, and now we're talking about guys that will more than 4 guys that will take on other players 1v1. We used to have maybe
How about
one.
That? There's an idea.
Serginho Dest goes right at it. Pulisic goes right at it. Weston McKennie goes right at it. Musa goes right at it. Aronson goes right at it.
Yes, he's going to move to Germany soon, which is great news.
So you got guys that are willing to go 1v1, and that's super important, and that's helped a lot. And yeah, Berhalter said, "Okay, kids, go out there and fight. Just do it. I believe in you." It's total miracle on ice, right? It's Brooks.
Absolutely.
The big dogs.
Absolutely. You're exactly right. I could do without the Air Force Ones that he wears and the behind the back passes to throw ins, but that's just me. But Carlos, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day. Reno 911, The Hunt for QAnon, Thursday, December 23rd, on Paramount Plus. And listen, we have international listeners that debuts Friday, January 7th. So look for that. Carlos, thank you so much.
Thank you. What a blast.